So, welcome back to the Your OKC Property Manager podcast, where we talk with industry experts to help you grow and protect your rental portfolio. Today's guest is Andrew Gasper. He's owner of Palladium Roofing, a company that quickly became known for their integrity, speed, and investor savvy service. We're talking about something that every Oklahoma landlord needs to prepare for: storm damage. And the title of the podcast is Hail, Wind, and Insurance: How to Protect Your Portfolio from Storm Damage. It's about how you can minimize risk, avoid insurance nightmares, and make smart decisions when the skies go dark. So let's go ahead and get into it. Andrew, tell us a little more about Palladium Roofing and how did you get your start? And kind of can you give us a little background?
Yeah, so at Palladium Roofing, we help homeowners and business owners, whether it's navigating the process related to storm damage and insurance claims, or maybe sometimes a real estate investor is only dealing with a client who's sharing that they have a leak or something like that. We come out there and we make repairs, or if necessary, we end up replacing the roof. And sometimes for some ideal customers, we will do roof maintenance as well. So more so on the commercial side. With some of the stuff that we do, it's roof repairs and roof replacements are what most real estate investors are more common with. I got my start in the industry almost a decade ago now, and we work with many property management companies and real estate investors around the metro just because of our availability to offer repairs for real estate investors.
What type of storms cause the most roof and exterior damage here in Oklahoma?
In Oklahoma, it's typically your hail damage, and it typically goes unseen. Because your typical real estate investors are not overseeing or looking at those properties very common. So hail damage can cause the most for your real estate investors. Can we have tornadoes? Yes, but they're unlikely. As much as the news reports them, we don't have huge tornadoes that occur in the metro that real estate investors have to worry about.
Have you ever actually seen a tornado? I've lived in Oklahoma since 1992. I've never actually seen a tornado.
Yeah, I've never seen a tornado myself, but I've been in some areas within a few hours and within a few days, right after a tornado is hit, and the the damage is devastating. And you go into those areas, and I was younger. I've lived in more my whole life, and so the 1999 tornado and the 2013 tornado just it really puts you in perspective when you actually do have a tornado.
Yeah, I remember when Obama came to visit. It was when we had that huge tornado that went through Moore.
Yeah,
I was helping somebody clean up, and Air Force One came right over the top of us as we were cleaning up.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's funny.
That'd be a lot of fun, or just interesting to see at least. But living more my whole life, I know a little bit about tornadoes. Have not been hit by either one of them. It's gone north of us and south of us, but it's been interesting.
Right. Okay. What's the most expensive mistake that you've seen an investor make after a storm?
Oh man, the biggest mistake that I've seen is investors that maybe have to pay someone up front to do the work, and then they just don't get the work done. That happens more than you think. Sometimes trying to track some of these guys down, depending on, if you can go after them legally, that's, something maybe attorney can help you with. But if they don't have any assets to pay you back, if they take your money, then you could be, lack of better terms, SOL. That would be the number one most expensive, and then the number two would probably be just hiring someone that doesn't do it right, just skips key details, uses the wrong material in areas like wall flashings or dead valleys. And so the more complexity you have to the job could cost the homeowner or real estate investor in this case additional funds to just repair something that maybe was done incorrectly.
Right. Okay. And so Palladium Roofing doesn't insist on their money up front?
No. So in many cases, we are, especially if we're dealing with an insurance claim, we'll complete the roof. If we're kind of acting as a general contractor in some cases, we'll complete the roof, collect a check, and then a portion of the funds, complete the rest of the work, and then collect a second check at that point. So that's how we operate. And there are companies out there that are very reputable that collect a portion of the funds up front. But this was a homeowner in one case, but in the last year, I had he was a disabled veteran. He gave a company a check up front for $21,000 and unfortunately never got the work done. And material was delivered to his house. It wasn't started. A couple days later, material was removed. And 3 months after that, he got a lien on the house from the supplier. And if you looked up the owner of this specific company, I mean, he just had this list of lawsuits against him. And so, there's a little bit of investigative work people should do before they choose to hire a company. But there are good companies out there that do require some funds up front. And so I'm not gonna bash on companies that do that. That's fine. We don't do that. It makes people more comfortable. And we collect our funds at various portions through completion of the project.
Okay. Is it true then that in a lot of cases the insurance proceeds won't completely cover the cost of the storm damage?
That's a great question for your investors, because they really, knowing your policy is the most important part of, is our insurance proceeds going to cover the work or not? So as policies are changing, coverages are essentially reducing. So that creates exposure and more risk for your real estate investors. Deductibles are just going up. You'll see, common back 10 years ago, you'd see $500, $1,000 deductibles. Now you're seeing for real estate investments, maybe 2,000, maybe 5,000, 1%, 2% of the dwelling coverage. And so deductibles are going up and coverages are typically coming down depending on the age of the roof. And so we see a lot of times real estate investors have actual cash value policies that don't cover for the property to be essentially what we call replacement cost. So essentially, there's a depreciated value that's taken out, deductibles taken out, and they're left with a smaller portion in the end. And that's becoming more and more frequently as the insurance companies are just changing the policies. Policies in the last 10 years have gotten, I mean, they're going down, but they still provide coverage when you really need it. It's just a little bit less coverage, especially for wind and hail claims. If you had a tornado claim or something and the house was, completely destroyed, you're going to be very appreciative when you actually have your insurance policy. In many cases, you can have quite a bit of out of pocket from if you have a wind or hail.
So if I own a couple of rental properties, and let's say that I hear that we've had a hailstorm come through, maybe over the weekend or something like that. What should I be doing then? Say Monday morning.
A good plan is for a property management company that has a good relationship with a roofing company, to maybe the roofing company is proactively sending, hey, here's the general area. We did have a storm. If it was 1.5 inches or greater, that can cause damage to most people in Oklahoma are going to have an asphalt shingle roof. And so 1.5 inches or greater could cause some substantial damage to an asphalt shingle. And so where some of the property management companies we work with, we'll just kind of give them a general area. Sometimes we just kind of send them a map screenshot of the map where the storm came through, and that could give them a an idea of maybe what tenants they need to notify. So with some of the property management companies we work with, they will kind of proactively send some stuff out to the tenants. I'm not certain how they use AppFolio and some of the other programs and everything like that. They'll send some stuff out. Things to look for is there obvious water damage that's occurring? If we've got a rain with that storm, did any water damage occur? Are they missing any shingles? These are things that you can have the tenant look out for, if they're willing to do that. But have the tenant look out for that stuff. And then if you start to see stuff like that, like if the tenant's car has some hail damage, hopefully they notify the property management company through their work order request process to send someone out there. And then typically, it is on. So it is the burden of the investor in this case, or property owner in this case, to protect the property from additional damage. So if the property owner investor waits and does not do anything, and it causes additional damage like mold or anything like that, the policies can exclude that. So as a property investor or owner, you really do want to protect the property. So getting it looked at sooner, if necessary, tarping it, protecting it can through a tarp can be reimbursed. I say some cases, roofing companies will be very, they tarp way too much. And it can make it difficult for the insurance company to provide coverage if they can't see what's going on. So tarp what's necessary. We had some windstorms back in March that people were missing just a bundle of shingles in one area, and you've got roofing companies tarping the entire slope, and the insurance companies were getting very mad about that, because they will fight you on whether they have to cover that entire slope, or maybe even not even pay anything additional on the other slopes. So doing what you can to protect the property right away. So having proactive property management company that, again, has good relationships. And as a property investor, you do want to have a good relationship with your insurance agent as well.
Should you contact the insurance company first, or the roofing company?
Be very hesitant to contact the insurance company first. If we have a tornado, again, this like that's a worst case scenario that could happen in Oklahoma. Have a tornado, the house goes missing. Feel free to contact the insurance company right away. Like, there's no problem with that. But again, like wind claims, you're missing 10 shingles on the backside of the house. Hold off a little bit on calling the insurance company. It might be a simple couple-hour repair with a bundle of shingles, and maybe you're paying $500 to get some work done and being done with it. It saves you the claim, saves you, it's likely to be under your deductible. And so having a roofing company that's going to come out there and evaluate the property for the damage that it has and the work that's needed, not the potential of, hey, we could go to the insurance company and we can fight them, we can get them to pay for the entire roof. That's a very common thing where roofing companies will say, oh, if I come out here and meet the insurance adjuster, I can convince them to pay for the roof. You're typically not going to convince them. They're either going to pay for it or not, and it all depends on the adjuster you could get. But the roofing company could evaluate it. Who you have come out there could evaluate it and determine whether it makes sense to file a claim. And if it's going to be, below deductible, you don't want that claim because they're going to consider that a zero pay claim, and that zero pay claim could have an effect in the future because you filed a claim below your deductible. And if you file a claim below your deductible, you look like you're more likely to file more claims in the future, and that could just increase your risk to the insurance carriers, and they could affect you with a rate increase, or maybe a drop your policy or something like that. So, insurance companies, as wind and hail and tornadoes are considered an act of God in Oklahoma, and when you have an act of God, they pay for the claim in that sense, then they can't raise your rate, but they're typically raising everybody's rate in the whole area because they've filed claims, because the community in general is filing claims rather than you individually. But if you do have a zero pay claim, that can affect you. And this is just information that's shared with me from insurance agents. I don't have my insurance license or anything. This is just, stuff I've picked up from talking with those agents and adjusters through, my career essentially.
That makes sense. Do you charge your customers when you actually go out to look at their roof, or is that something that, like, what's that inspection process look like when you get a call from a customer?
Yeah, so no, we actually provide complimentary inspections, and it's something that we do for all of our clients. The information that you're going to get back, it just depends on whether you're your ideal client for us. In some cases, we'll still give you information that we find out there, and most roofing companies will maybe give you a report, maybe give you a little details on the what's going on with the roof, but and it's, I will say, it's pretty standard in the metro area, Oklahoma City area, to have a roofing company that won't charge for those. We do work with some larger commercial property management companies where we give them very detailed 40, 50 page reports where we might go out there and look at their property every other year, and we're giving them very detailed, like, here's the plans for what you need to plan your capex for, here's the maintenance you might need to do. And with those property management companies and the reports we write, we will charge for our time essentially to write those reports, because there's several hours invested in the inspection process and report writing. But on the residential side, if you're working, if more of the people that listen to this are residential property investors, then yeah, you're going to typically find someone who's going to go out there. It's just, it all depends on the level of reporting and information you want back. Our process, if it's a repair that's necessary, we're going to send you photos of what is necessary to fix and an estimate for the repairs. And we'll typically, if the estimate is, and again, I'm not trying to sell us. I'm just trying to say, hey, these are kind of the standards you should set with roofing companies. And there's some other great roofing companies in the metro that kind of do these things. And so you want to align with a roofing company that's at least doing these things bare minimum. So if the roof needs to be replaced, in our case, essentially we send everything back to the property management company. Sometimes that owner has a preferred contractor they might use, and they might just go right with them right away, but they at least have our report sent to them with information that could support what the other roofing company is going to say as well. So they may just have them do it. If it's a roof replacement, the property management company will usually request maybe us to deal with the insurance company or just send an estimate over. And again, that's what most roofing companies are going to do. There's some that'll do less than that, but I can think of 5 other good companies right now that I would say, hey, go. They will give you all the same stuff we're going to give you.
I'll give you a couple of things I'd run into here in the last couple of years. One is I had this insurance company turned in a claim for this roof, and they wanted to replace just the shingles where they saw the hail hits. They actually saw the hail hits, and it ended up being, like a $1,000 repair job. And but the roofing company said, well, but the roof is, both sides of the roof are destroyed. I mean, do you ever like run into anything like that with insurance companies where it seems like they're coming up with something kind of ridiculous?
It can happen. That is not something I've not experienced. So I've experienced that before, where the insurance adjusters just don't tend to agree with my assessment of the property, and essentially the roof. In this case, and so what I would say is, adjusters are human sometimes. I've worked with adjusters that have gone on power trips and essentially just become super difficult to to work with. They kind of shut down during the adjuster appointment. Like I said, at the end of the day, people have to remember adjusters are people. It's typically, they have a contract with the insurance company to provide a service to evaluate the roof, and they have to go by their guidelines. And so they don't want to lose that contract with the insurance company because their livelihood depends on it. Sometimes if they're staff adjusters and they work directly with the insurance company, those staff adjusters again have guidelines. It's corporate America. They have people above them that have to do all of this, KPI reporting, and some Harvard MBA is saying, here's our standard to approve roofs, and they've never evaluated or actually worked on a construction project before. And so then they push all of those guidelines down to an adjuster who has to say, I can't pay for it. I've got to pay for it this way. And so it absolutely does happen. And they will pay for slopes or specific shingles. A lot of times I've had people file claims where my recommendation is this is borderline. It's got damage, but it might be hard for the insurance company to pay for all of it. And so, this being borderline, it could go one of two ways. They could pay for replacement, and hey, everybody should celebrate that case because it's going to save you money when they do pay for replacement. If they pay for repairs and they don't agree that full replacement is necessary, then we may just have to do those repairs instead of getting the roof replaced. And if you want to fight the insurance companies, roofers can typically help and kind of go back and forth a little bit with them. But above that, it might be necessary to get a public adjuster and then an attorney to help with the insurance claim if you're really wanting to go to that extent. And sometimes I've had to recommend people to do that. I've had an Allstate claim where they paid for 100 shingles on a house that was missing a couple areas of the roof, and they paid for 100 shingles. They had no framing for the section of the house that was torn off, and the homeowner we talked about it, and his decision was to sue the insurance company. And the insurance company within a year ended up settling the claim. I sent the attorney and my client in this case an estimate. Here's what it's going to take to get everything done, and they had already had the settlement and just paid us essentially just to do it without us even at that point having to do with anything with the insurance company. And so if you have denied claims, sometimes it just could be maybe there isn't enough damage, or sometimes you just need the right people to assist you with the claim.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't just leave an open roof when there's weather going on.
No, absolutely. And like I said earlier in the podcast, it is the burden of the policyholder to protect the property from additional damage. And if the insurance company was able to prove that you did not take additional, that seriously, and you did not cover or prevent additional damage, they could possibly try not to pay for other damages that do occur later on.
Makes sense. Yeah. What type of documentation should a property investor or landlord have so that they're in a good position once they do have some storm damage?
That's a great question. And the documentation that you should gather is before the storm even occurs. Okay. And that's getting an inspection and having baseline photos and condition of the property before it happens. A story that I always reference when I'm talking to people about this is I looked at a property on a Monday. This was a real estate deal. I looked at it on a Monday, and my report was written, sent to everybody, and it just said, hey, we can tell the chimney's leaking, so we need to replace the chimney, and there's some old hail damage, but nothing to worry about. It's not what we call cosmetic. Shingle wasn't broken, granules are missing, but you could tell it had hail damage. Wednesday, a storm came through, dropped 1.5 inches hail in this area, and they asked me to come look at it again because, again, they're still under contract. And I get out there, and you can see my photos from Monday had no hail in it. I took the same photo, you can see the new hail in it. And so we have a baseline, we've got a storm that occurs, and then we've got again, time-stamped photos from the day after. So they file a claim with a specific insurance company. Would you imagine the insurance company came out and said the roof did not need to be replaced? It was blistering. And so because of that, I was like, all right, this is going to be super easy. So I called the insurance adjuster and I said, hey, I just want you to know, because you don't have this backstory. I said, on Monday, I looked at this and I gave her the date. Storm date occurred on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I looked at it. And I said, you guys denying this makes this a very easy, and I got to be very careful with how I'm doing this, but I just was very open with the adjuster. So this is going to become a very easy bad faith claim because we have all of these 70 photos from Monday, and we've got another 50 photos from Thursday that we're taking, and a storm date that occurred with meteorologists tracked a hailstorm that happened. And so within 24 hours, the insurance company overturned their initial determination and said, we're going to pay for it. So again, everything that happens and the information you gather is knowing what it looks like before the storm happens. And so getting baseline inspection reports with photos, we don't send those 50, 70 photos we have an entire checklist that we go through. So we get all the details we need. We don't send all of that, but we're going to send you 4 to 8 photos showing condition and if there's any repairs that need to happen. But because we had that information when the storm actually happened, it just made it way easier for us to call the adjuster and to say, hey, here's what happened. And they were like, okay. So they just overturned it because that could have been a very easy lawsuit for an attorney right there because we had all of that information. So going back and having all of that stuff on file, all of that information, knowing baseline, having photos of the condition of the roof and exterior is going to show the insurance company later on when a storm does happen, here's what you actually owe us for.
What is a bad faith claim?
Bad faith claim would be when the insurance company does not come through and pay based on how the policy is written. The policies have specific exclusions and endorsements, and if they do not pay, then essentially an attorney is going to go in and sue them, and it's more than what the claim is actually going to cost in the end. It's probably going to be 4 to 5 times more, and then you're going to be paying attorney fees, probably 25 to 30% of the actual claim. What the insurance company pays out is going to pay the attorney, but then you have everything left over. That's way more than the insurance company should have paid in the beginning. So I would not recommend it. It's not a fun process. The one time was that actually I recommended an attorney. The one time it actually went that far was that tornado claim that the insurance company ended up settling a year, and it's because it was so obvious that everything they should have paid for, that the insurance company settled that quickly, because sometimes they can go 2 to 4 years. So they can be much longer than that. But I've got a good attorney that I recommend for property claims, essentially, that used to work for an insurance company. And so he was the attorney who was essentially the defendant in a lot of cases. So he knows the practices of the insurance companies, and he knows how to do that when essentially he's turning around suing them. So good friend of mine, and it just makes it way easier for us to refer him out. And sometimes he'll just make recommendations for what the homeowner needs to send him information on. But he's got one more of my claims right now where the insurance company initially said they were going to pay $20,000 in this depreciation, and then they turned around and said they weren't paying the depreciation. So everybody was under the impression they were going to pay all this. And then later on, we asked for extension and stuff like that. It was not saved or anything like that. So now he's suing the insurance company for that. I think they're getting close. I think we were requested for information a few weeks ago, actually, on that case.
Okay.
It's never fun for us to get a subpoena. And sometimes we just looked at the roof and that's all we did. And we were like maybe one of the roofers, maybe not the one that's actually like helping the homeowner. And you get some attorney documents in the mail. You're like, what is this?
So what are some steps that landlords can take to reduce the risk of storm damage later?
It's all about the quality of, in this case, again, we're talking exterior damage. The biggest thing in Oklahoma is we might not have hail, but let's say we have wind. And what we do see in a lot of cases with real estate investment is wind damage. Wind damage and flashings not being installed properly, wall flashings being taken into consideration and removed in the previous roof replacement. And so wind damage happens for a few reasons. Improper nailing. And so maybe the crew is not nailing. They're over driving the nails into the shingles. They're not using enough nails. But then another thing that real estate investors need to make sure that they are considering this is proper ventilation on the properties. That's one of the big things we do not see. And when you do not have proper ventilation on the in the attic space, so we're talking exhaust ventilation. So hot air, the cool air comes into the attic through the soffit vents, and the exhaust vents at the top allows that hot air to get out. So we have air circulating through the roof. In my opinion, a lot of the roof systems in Oklahoma fail because of proper ventilation. And so that sealant strip, I've got a train coming, but that sealant strip fails, and then basically you have the bottom third of the shingle now loose. And when that sealant strip fails, that shingle's just popping up. Okay. And if it wasn't nailed properly, then it's just going to exacerbate the issue. So making sure when a roof replacement's done, or if it's a slightly newer roof and you just purchased the house, and I'm going to say house just in case residential, then you're making sure that the ventilation is at least updated or correct, because that's going to make sure that roof lasts longer. You have a hot attic space, you have the sun basically baking the shingle, and you have that hot attic space is not creating the cool air on the backside. So that asphalt just becomes so brittle that sealant strip starts to fail, and it's just going to reduce the overall life of the roof. So if in this case, that makes it more susceptible to wind damage. And as that asphalt starts to get more brittle, all the granules start coming off, and the granules protect it from add weight to it, so they protect it from wind damage. And if the granules are missing, it can make it more susceptible to hail damage too, slightly smaller hail damage. So, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, depending on the density, could damage the roof. But now we're talking, let's say 1 inch hail can damage the roof. We're more likely to get 1 inch than we are 1.25 inches. And as the hail gets bigger, the likelihood we have it is less and less. And so you need to be more worried about that smaller hail than that, softball size hail that, we haven't had softball size in the hail in the metro in 9 years, almost 10 years now. We've gotten 1.75 inches, 2 inch more frequently. So that's some stuff to be aware of. Proper ventilation and just making sure, impact resistant shingles are an investment. If a real estate investor it's going to be depending on what their process is. Or do they want cash flow and they don't want to invest a lot into the roof? So let's go with an asphalt shingle. But is this a long-term investment? If you look at a lot of commercial pitched roofs, a lot of them tend to be like standing seam. So your concealed fastener systems that are going to last 50 years. So if this is a long-term play for you and it is an investment, maybe a metal roof is an option that you want to go with. That can significantly reduce the chance that you could have storm damage. You could still have storm damage, but you're not likely needing to make roof repairs or replacements after if you have a metal roof. And so things like that could be done. If I was an investor, I had my own rental properties. I sold my last rental property, I think 2019. I had a few of them that I sold. But if on my property right now, if it was not brick or stone, I would have an LP product, something like an engineered wood siding instead of vinyl. Vinyl is going to be way more susceptible, especially as the UV lights break down the vinyl. I would have a metal roof and engineered wood siding. And that's what I would have to make the roof last longer, because LP is tested for 1.75 and 2 inch hail. And as long as it drops straight down or is not, straight directional into the LP wood, you're likely not to have siding issues either. So I would do that. Again, it's going to be a little bit more investment, but if I'm thinking long term and just and not immediate cash flow, then I would do something like
that. About the quality of the shingle, are you Are you more inclined to suggest a impact resistant or just the regular asphalt? I mean, just for your average house.
Yeah, so we sell impact resistant, and what I would say is your standard, what you see typically on investment is, if we had three levels, you've got your standard level, you've got your class three, and now you've got your class four. Class three is rated for inch and three quarter. Class four is rated for 2-inch hail, and that's what it's tested at in laboratories. But again, each one's going to step up in price. So how much of an investment do I want right now? And a lot of what we're doing for real estate investors is that class three option. Again, wind hail rated up to inch and three quarter. And, we're not likely to have, 2-inch very often, but we could get 1-inch every year in that area. Where I live in Moore, we've had hail come through 4 times this year already. But again, it's like pea size to quarter size and nothing bigger than that. So I don't have any damage on my house. So that's the stuff that we want to make sure we protect, again, is those smaller storms if we're looking to make this last for a long time. So class four investment property, if someone really wants to make that investment, it can be good. We're going to use class four shingles, class four ridge, make sure it's vented properly. But a class three option, in this case, we do a lot of Owens Corning. So your Owens Corning duration with that sure nail strip, going to protect you against wind and up to inch and three quarter hail. It can damage at inch and three quarter, but if the density is very dense, that's where you're going to usually have issues. You can have a inch and a half hailstone that's just so hard and so dense that it's not gonna shatter when it actually hits the roof. And so that's some stuff to consider. But we install a lot of our what we call our duration option for real estate investment.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, I tell you what, this has just been incredibly helpful, and I think very interesting for our listeners. Is there any like parting advice you'd have for about wind and hail damage?
No, like I said earlier, I'd go back to your question about gathering documentation. I think that's the biggest thing that people can have is just knowing the condition of their roof currently. Every other year, have someone go out there, look at the condition, being proactive on these properties and documenting the condition of them could save you guys when a claim actually happens. And so I think that's a huge thing to do. And I think just, really it's being proactive to protect these properties. Knowing your insurance policy as well could save you so that there's no shocks when it comes to super high deductible and an ACV. No one wants to get have a $15,000 roof claim, but you're only getting $2,000 from the insurance because you had a high deductible and an ACV policy.
Makes sense.
It's happened before, and people do not like that.
All right. So where can people go to learn more about palladium roofing and even schedule an inspection if they want to do something like that?
Yeah, so people can actually find us just at palladiumroofing.com. There's a lot of information on us in there. You can there's a contact us form that you can fill out, and we'd be happy to reach back out to you guys to get an inspection scheduled. Like I said earlier, when it comes to the property management companies, when they're, find a roofing company that is working directly with the property management company. And so there's a symbiotic relationship of when there's an issue, repairs or replacements can occur. And again, we do a lot of repairs. We do a lot of maintenance with property management companies because that's what real estate investors need. Sometimes that roof replacement is just not an investment that can be made at this time, but it's something that can be budgeted in the future.
And that support is definitely much appreciated too from a property management perspective, because I have made that call before to roofing company. After a storm, what areas do we need to kind of really focus in on? And I've had the well, we don't really know. And that wasn't very, not very helpful. So if we have here's a map, here's where I need to kind of take a look at any of your properties inside of this little little area, that's super helpful. So
Yeah.
thanks again for joining us, Andrew. And if you're a property investor in Oklahoma, you will definitely deal with storm damage at some point, and hopefully the things that we talked about here will help you to prepare for that a little bit better in the future.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.